and welcome to Success at Scale, the podcast that covers business stories from experienced entrepreneurs, business leaders, and startup founders on how to translate business ideas into business results. I'm your host, Gregg Stein, and today we are talking with Pati. I'm so excited that she is here. Thank you so much for joining us, Pati. She is the CEO and founder of KADO. Did I say that right, Pati?
Yes, that's correct.
KADO.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get right into it. I'm dying to know a little bit more about you, as are our listeners. So, Pati, tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me over. I love your energy.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah. So yes, well, thank you. And hi, everyone. So I'm Pati. I'm the CEO and founder of KADO, and enterprise networking and relationship management software. So telling you guys a little bit more about my story. So, I did law and business in college. So I'm from Madrid, by the way, from Spain, Madrid, and there I studied law and business. And I started working as an investment banker in London. So I was in the M&A consumer and retail team there. And obviously you can imagine, hours were long, lots of late nights, or all-nighters, you could say, pretty much. And, at some point I just got very tired of just pitching over and over again. And actually that was when I started to think of the idea of KADO, funny enough, even though, I went through like different roles after investment banking. But one of the things that I realized there was that, my most successful partners or directors were the ones that were, master networkers. They were always on top of their relationships, and they would show up to meetings, maybe even without a deck or, a very short presentation, but it was more about the relationship with the client. Whereas as analysts, we would spend lots of time, like pitching and preparing decks, etc., for then like partners that would not have the relationship. So there was a lot of like time wasted there. And then they would go to the meeting without, after 3-4 nights without sleeping, and we would, potentially just like lose the pitch just because the managing director or the partner did not have the relationship that other banks had. So that's when actually I started thinking about all of this situation. But yeah, that sort of like burned me out after like a few years in banking. And then I decided to move on and start working for different startups. Actually, during my time, at these startups, I saw again the issue about, how important, networking and relationships are, either, to close businesses or to fundraise, or just, just to develop partnerships. And the reality is that the ecosystem of CRMs is very sales focused. So very focused on, salespeople, pretty much. But people that get a lead have to do a demo, and then you lose it or you win it. But not really on networking and relationship building, processes. So after I decided, to move on and basically start KADO, I went to coding, to coding school, to Le Wagon, it's a French one. And there was like 4 or 5 months of a coding bootcamp. And once I was done with that, that's when I moved to New York in September 2020. So, the time was a bit weird.
Right in the heart of the pandemic.
Finally, September, I could move to the States. So that's when I started dedicating a little bit more time, to the company, doing research, building the initial prototype, getting feedback. And then December 2020, that's when I hired my first employee, my first backend engineer. And that's when we started basically, that's when we started getting KADO going and the development of the company going.
What a crazy journey. So okay. So investment banking, entrepreneur, you kind of have everything all wrapped up in one. But let me ask you this, tell us about KADO, what you guys are doing now. And then we'll rewind again. So KADO.
Yeah. So we are very focused on what we call relationship-driven industry. So I had put the example of investment banking before, but to be honest, this can be applied to lawyers, real estate agents, consultants, or even, management, to be honest, management positions in any type of company. So anyone, to be honest, who basically does business based on their relationships. Okay. So KADO has two sides of it. On the one hand side, We have digital business cards, you could say. I don't like calling it digital business cards because it goes beyond. It's like a sort of like a LinkedIn profile 2.0 kind of thing. So you can have your contact information. You can have like different links and calls to actions to, either your calendar or different parts of your site. You can have all of your different social media integrated in your profile. You can have videos. So it's sort of like a mini website, you could say, or a mini landing page for each different employee. So those can be shared either through a QR or a link. So imagine you're, in an event or just a conference or a client meeting, you can share your QR and your client can have, direct access to all of your information or anything that you want to send through. So for example, we're very focused with real estate agents. So we're very popular with real estate agents because whenever, they show a building or a house, instead of, following up with the client later on about the mortgage application or about, other listings that they can show whenever they share their profile, they can have all of the links to the mortgage application, the listings, the reviews, all of their social media, everything, centralized in that one same place. And again, it's very easy to share. And then the second part, which is more the relationship management part, we basically integrate with all of the sources that you would use on your day-to-day. So say your email, your calendar, LinkedIn, and now we're working on Twitter, news. So whenever you're going to have a meeting with someone, we're going to be able to pull together all of that information for you. So we can give you sort of like a debrief on who you are about to meet.
How did you come up with all? I mean, this is quite an interesting field to get into, especially coming from investment banking and all the rest. So how did you get into this, and how did you come up with the name for it as well?
The idea sort of was started building together, coming together throughout the years. To be honest, it was just like this thing that I had in the back of my mind, and as years went by, it just started getting more, solidity, or it just started making more and more sense. And again, every time that I look for things in the market, people say like, oh, it's a very saturated market. But then whenever I look at the market, I don't see any solution that would satisfy my needs in the way that I'm looking to cover, right? So that is one. And then in terms of, actually deciding to take the step forward and move to the States. I mean, I guess that after working for a couple of startups, it's not that I'm old and I have like so many years of experience, but still like it's been short years, but pretty intense. So it came to the point where I thought, look, I'm working so hard, so many hours. Even after I quit investment banking, which was because of the hours, I was still working very long hours. And, it was, to make other people richer, you could say. So I decided that, with all of these different experiences, both in, finance, fundraising, business development, then I went through coding school. So I thought, okay, now I think I have all of the, or like at least the basic set of, skills that I would need, to start my own company. So for me, the fact like getting started was easy, I would say. I mean, it's also true. Like my husband always tells me that I'm a bit of a crazy person, like my level of, or my perception of risk is very low. So it wasn't that hard for me, like to make the decision. But also, again, I had the support of having gone through it with other startups that weren't mine. Right. So I sort of like knew where to go or what to do or who to hire, who to contact. Then obviously I made 100 million of mistakes. But at least
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a second. Like, so you make mistakes and those are lessons, right? So what are some of the mistakes? If someone out there is listening and saying, I'm going to do a startup, what advice would you provide to them to say, hey, watch out for these things?
One of the things I would say is hiring. Be a little bit more careful, with who you hire. I mean, I've had to fire a couple of people already. But because I guess, especially the timing where I started, there wasn't that much, or people willing to change jobs. I mean, it was COVID. So obviously, like, why would I leave my stable job under a stable company in times of COVID to follow this girl this Spanish girl that just arrived to the States. Like, who the hell is she?
Right.
So even though I must admit that my engineers, they're based in Spain, so that's something that benefited me in terms of like finding the rest of the team. But it's sure that I took some decisions a little bit too fast, and just because I thought that maybe it was going to take me too much time to find someone else. But to be honest, it would have been worth waiting that one extra month to find someone and just be, a little bit more, confident.
The phrase I use a lot is, hey, you got to slow down before you speed up sometimes, right? And not always, but sometimes that's true. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I mean, again, like it really depends. I'm going to say hiring, that is one where I would have said like, okay, that is true. Because especially in Spain, firing someone is very expensive. I think like the good thing about the States is like people are like more expensive, but then if you're not happy, well, you can just like cut the ties. But in Spain, it's very expensive to fire someone. So it would have been worth it, spending a little bit more time trying to do a little bit more research, and then making the correct hire. For other type of scenarios, I'm more of a let's go very fast and then let's try to solve the mistakes. But again, that is more because of where we stand in terms of product development. We are more of, okay, let's try to go to market with not whether it's the product or a specific feature. Let's try to go to market as fast as possible with whatever we can. No, whether it's a half broken, who cares? Let's try to go to market and then iterate and fix things. But I must say that in that sense, I've always been, more favorable to being or doing things very fast.
Yeah, go fast, fail fast, right? Absolutely. Exactly. I'm with you. Yeah, no, yeah. I think, that it's true. Like, it's weird, right? There's a real dynamic here because on one hand, there's like this perception that you have to go really fast and blah, 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 right? And then, skip details, figure it out later, right? On the other hand, you really do need to have those details figured out because the devil is in the details, right? So, there's this kind of constant push-pull that I've found. I don't know if you found this in your experience as well.
For sure. No, for sure. I mean, and I think that's why, sometimes my development team, they must be thinking like, oh my God, we're going to kill you. Because I mean, so I take care of product development within the company. So, or that would be my more like specific role. Because then I have a salesperson who is a little bit more connected, in the country and has more seniority in terms of sales. That has never been really my strength. So I take more care of product, and I have to speak with the development team, every day. And I'm always, pushing them to really, make this release. And then suddenly we're out in market and I realize there's like this million corner cases that we hadn't thought about, or things are breaking, or so we have to, like stop, fix, do another release. So I do feel you, because I mean, that has happened to us a lot where we go too fast and obviously we forget the most basic, details of the functionality. Whether it is, like releasing the functionality and not like placing the button to activate it. This kind of,
no, this is the real balance. No, this is the real balance. And I think it's a tough one, especially for entrepreneurs, right? I think, and founders. So let's talk about that, being a founder. So I am a proud dad of a 9-year-old girl who I think is going to grow up and I hope whatever she wants to do, she's going to grow up and she's going to be a leader like you. So what advice would you give to her, a young girl getting started? I mean, she's got a ways to go, but, let's say she was a bit older. What advice would you give to her if she was going to start her company today?
One, obviously, is, well, hey, not to be scared, not to be afraid. I think everyone makes mistakes. One of the things that at least, I was more afraid of in my early ages, I'm going to say as a professional, was of making mistakes, especially because when you come out of college or university or, high school, you're like, okay, if I study, I get good grades. But the reality is that in real life, that is not always the case. You can work very hard and things just don't work, or, the hypothesis that you had about a specific idea or problem end up not being the correct one. So mistakes and failure is part of the process. So that's sort of like the first thing, and that I wish as well I had told myself is, not to be afraid to fail. And failure doesn't mean, building a disastrous company. Like a failure can mean many things. It can mean making a mistake, or what I was saying, thinking that a feature is going to kill it, and then suddenly you release it to the market and nobody uses it, which has happened to us. So there are many aspects to failure. So that is the first thing that I would say. Like just not to be afraid. And the other thing is that, and maybe, this is a little bit harder to say, but you really need to grow like a very thick skin, I believe, being a founder. There's like lots of good things that happen in the entrepreneurship journey, especially when you look back and you look at what you've built. But there are like many of the times we go through are like very hard, and it's a very lonely road, I would say. So many times, you find yourself not knowing who to talk about or who to talk to about, what's going on in the company. I mean, thank God, I have my husband next to me, but I'm pretty sure like he gets pretty tired of listening to me like every single day and, and hearing me complain. So it can be a very lonely journey, but at the same time, there's like lots of people out there, lots of other founders out there that are going through the same situation. So trying to find, groups of, in the case, especially like women in tech, we're not that many. So it's nice, whenever you go out there and you look for other women in tech and you try to, support each other, that really helps in terms of, learning and again, just like moral support, I would say. But yeah, I mean, I really hope that, your little kid will go one day and, start her own tech company.
You never know. I mean, listen, I'm not the kind of guy that like pushes it on the kids. I want to give them all the ability to do what they want, right? But
no, that's good.
The thing is, I look at it and I say, oh my goodness, there is a real movement with more women in tech, and it's very exciting. I mean, I think the more diverse groups of people that we have in technology and leadership, to me, it's so meaningful, and it's such an exciting time in that way. Because, the more you open up your mind to different ideas, right? That's where creativity is going to come from,
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think also just the education landscape has been changing a lot. I think especially in my generation, before it was like, or at least when I was a kid, and again, I know that my parents have always pushed for the best and try to give me the best, but it's true that how they raised me was in a very specific way where I had to, occupy a specific type of job that was more adapt or was better for women so that I could, have a family and raise kids. But in their minds, when the day that I told them, hey, I'm going to London to work in an investment banking firm, they told me, oh my God, but you're crazy. How are you going to find a boyfriend? How are you going to have kids? And look, I got married, so it's fine.
It all worked out. Right?
It all worked out. I don't have kids yet, but I mean, one day. But yeah, I mean, I was raised in that way that, being a woman, they're like better jobs, or that are more suited for women. And I think that has changed now, like a lot. And I think, like the same as I was saying, like my generation, I think has been sort of like the twisting point where now, hey, whether you're a girl, a man, whatever, I mean, you can do whatever type of job. There are no female type jobs nor male type jobs. It's just do whatever makes you happy.
Stuff to do, right?
That's it. Just do whatever makes you happy, no matter who you are. So I'm happy to see that, that is changing little by little.
So now let's bring it back to you in terms of like, what do you see is, the future of networking and relationship building and professional connection and networks,
Yeah. I mean, where I would love to see, and a little bit more specific maybe about KADO, but because how I see the future of networking is how I see my product in the future. No, that's how I reflect it.
Fair enough.
Much. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, like the future of networking would be it's such that whenever you meet someone, you exchange, call it KADO, call it whatever that will be in the future, and then instantaneously, we're able to know, okay, what is it that we have in common, whether we went to the same school, whether we know people in common, and be able in that moment to learn from the other person that you just met, because that helps a lot. One, to build the basis of the professional relationship, but also break the ice. Again, like find commonalities and bring that human aspect to the professional relationship. And again, whenever you meet this person again, we'll be able, to know what has been going on with this person, and PAF or KADO or again whatever, as a tool that you'll be able to use to better know when to contact people or know the latest updates about a specific person, but in an intelligent way, something that will bring people together. Because one of the things that many people forget is that business at the end of the day is about relationships, and the personal side in business, I mean, it's key, and that's always going to happen. Because say, for example, going back to banking, say Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, we're pushing for the same client. Ultimately, the decision is going to be based, of course, fees are going to play a part, but I mean, the fees are not that different between like two major banks. So the decision is going to fall onto, okay, who do I like more?
Right.
And who do you like more is a result of, call it weeks, call it months, call it years of relationship building. And that person having caused a great impression on you the first time you met, and that person having taken the time to, build that relationship and follow up with you and ask you about your kids and, I don't know, like, take you out for coffee or to a Giants game, whatever you call it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing, right? About this time, we are on these Zoom meetings or whatever platform, back to back, right? And you do a call, and we've turned into like machines right now.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. Like when we do our calls at Triple G, we get on the phone and we talk to somebody. I usually ask somebody, and everybody giggles every time I do it. I ask somebody, tell me about like you. And then they answer, oh, I do XYZ like a machine. I say, no. Tell me about you as a human being. Like, what do you do? On a personal level, right? Get to know each other a little bit. And almost every single time, not only does everybody giggle, but all of a sudden there's like a human element that's born, and the computer disappears for a minute, and then we connect, right? And then take it from there. I think you're spot on when you're talking about relationships, and that's where it begins, right? Just the humanity,
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, and again, this can be applicable to many things, but even right now, during my fundraising journey, like some of the intros that I've gotten either to potential clients or to potential investors have been from human, from real, like personal relationships, like someone that I met that, I just tried to be nice to try to meet this people or know this person better, the more, again, like the personal level, what they like, whether they enjoy going, playing golf on the weekends or riding horses or, hiking. And the fact that I was able to remember the name of the brother, what they like to do, or the fact that they had a deal, that they were closing a deal with whatever company. And I asked about it, that helped build a relationship. And then actually this has brought me, intros to potential investors or intros to potential clients. And not because there was hey, let's jump on a call, let me pitch you, and that's it. No.
No.
I mean, if I had done that, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have gone this far.
Yeah, no. Well, there you go. There's another piece of amazing advice for somebody getting started, right? Get to know if you're pitching and doing an investment, any work in investment and capital fundraising, really get to know people, right? Start there. Don't just start with the pitch and the deck and the, hey, I'll send you my financials, right? Like actually develop a relationship with somebody.
Exactly. I mean, which obviously it's hard, trying to get to the point where you get that introduction, because I think that's one of the biggest, or I guess, challenges in the fundraising journey, especially when you're like an immigrant or basically new to the country. You have to work on getting those relationships. And for me, it has been like a year of work. Really.
Yes.
It takes a lot of time. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are going to be so many different scenarios, like people that come out of, I don't know, say Stanford, Harvard, whatever, and they're like super hyper connected. So obviously it's very different for them. But I mean, if you're just like a normal person, if you're like a normal person, I mean, it's a work that you need to start doing very early on.
Yeah. But even
Mhm.
still, doesn't matter what walk of life you come from.
Yeah.
The reality is making relationships is everything. And I think you hit the nail
Uh-huh.
on the head. All right, let's bring it back to you. What's a challenge that you're facing right now that you're trying to overcome? And
Mhm.
how do you think about overcoming it?
Yeah. So I think right now our main or biggest, challenges, it's actually good but bad at the same time, in the sense of we suddenly started getting very good traction with leads. We've been working on SEO for the last year. So it started sort of like hitting in like January, more or less. Suddenly we started getting leads from big companies that were searching or looking for either digital business cards or relationship management softwares on Google, and we started coming up. So that was great. But at the same time, the amount of like features that they ask for are like higher or just a little bit more advanced than where we stand. So right now we are at that stage where we're getting very good leads, but we're not ready to onboard them. So we are afraid of, if we tell them to wait, we may lose them or they may go to competition. So we sort of like need them to stay with us, especially because, one, because obviously we don't want to lose them against competition, but two, because it also helps with a fundraising story, like, hey, we have these names. But I mean, a company or an administrator, the IT guy or the marketing guy or whoever is taking the decision, they're taking it on behalf of the company. So the decision making process for our type of clients is a lot more rational, in the sense of, hey, I just need this for my company. Like, if you don't have it ready, I'll just continue. I'll just continue looking for something else. Like, there's no need for me to wait.
Right.
Even though we try to use a lot the human component, so going back again to relationship building, so we try to really connect with them, have follow up calls, and sort of like lure them into staying with us, even though we're not yet there. So we try to do that a lot, and sometimes it works, sometimes it
So
doesn't,
here
obviously.
again, I mean, this takes us back to the beginning of the conversation and that like push pull,
Yeah.
on one side, you're like, hurry up, hurry up. On the other side, you're like, whoa, slow down. This could get
Yeah, yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
Mhm.
a constant ebb and flow, I think. But
Mhm.
I also really admire your tenacity that you're bringing to each one of these kind of problem solutions, right? Like you're really,
Mhm.
really going after, solving that problem,
Yeah. Mhm. And yeah, I mean, again, one, we're trying to lure them, like to stay, but then at the same time, we're trying to maybe offer them like super exclusive good deals. I mean, it's nearly giving out the product for free, and not really for free, because then that looks very bad on the fundraising side. But giving like super extra discounted rates, at least for a year. Like, hey, stay with us for a year, super discounted, and all of the features that you're asking for are going to come, and you're going to have them at the discounted rate. So I mean, it is a challenge in the sense that we have very limited resources and we need to push these features as fast as possible. But obviously, it's to enterprises, so we need to be very careful of not screwing it up in the process. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just like we're running against the clock pretty much.
Sounds about right. Sounds like you're doing
Yeah.
it right. So let me ask you: do you have a mentor or a role model that you look up to?
Um, to be honest, not like a direct mentor. I'm gonna say that there's like multiple people that have contributed to my story. Whether, I mean, we have an internal advisor that has helped me a lot, more on the product management side. But then I've spoken with different people in the tech and VC industries, even if they were not interested in KADO, or if it wasn't their sector. um, but there's always people out there that are happy, to give you advice, give you feedback. So I've been encountering this type of people, throughout my journey. And again, whether it's ex-founders or existing founders or people, from the tech industry, or, my old bosses, they've all sort of like helped me in this journey. So it's not that I really have like one single mentor, but I basically, there's like a lot of people that have contributed with small pieces of advice.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Is there, if you had to sum it up into a quote, a life quote, if you will, or something that, you use in business, do you have anything like this?
There's one that I read that I really liked. I don't think I remember maybe the exact words, but it was something about like I asked God for courage, or I asked God for strength, and He gave me like the obstacles to overcome. So like you cannot just ask for success, to be
Right.
honest. Like you learn again. It's like learning through failure, right? So if you want to develop that strength, that courage, to become an entrepreneur and to build your company, the reality is that that doesn't come as a given gift, but as it's a process that comes through, learning by, finding obstacles and trying to find the solutions to solve them or to overcome them.
Sounds
So
that
yeah,
no,
it was
that
something
sounds
like
like
that again. Like I don't remember the quote exactly, but it was something about I asked God for strength and He gave me the obstacles, pretty much.
well, it is about the obstacles and it's about
Yeah,
learning, right? It's
yeah.
about the journey, it's about learning. But let's kind of stay on this for a second. Right now, and
Hmm.
especially over the last couple of years, it's been tough times. It has not been easy. And
Hmm.
I started this podcast thinking, I was tired of listening to all these people talk about how just like glorious and amazing it is, and just, be aggressive and like all this stuff. And it's like, well, hold on a second. It's not that nice out here in the real world, right? So in the
Yeah.
real world, for somebody that might be struggling out there or having a harder time right now, is
Hmm.
there any, or maybe even just reinventing themselves, is there any advice that you might, practical
Hmm.
advice you might give to them now?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I'm gonna say like I go through the same stuff all the time. Like suddenly I have those days where I'm like, in the deepest of like darkness and like a hole where I'm like, okay, I'm not getting out of here. So I think like everyone goes through that. So I mean, I want to meet the people that, would say, or those that you're talking about that say that, that the life of an entrepreneur is easy peasy and, it's just like uh exciting and are always happy, because I mean that I don't think that's true for, I'm going to say like the 98%. So again, like feeling down, feeling that you don't see, the light at the end of the tunnel, that does happen a lot. One of the things that has helped me, and again, this is also hard to do, but you have to try, is sometimes, like taking that step back and first of all, looking back to what you've already done. I think that's sort of like the first step. And basically acknowledging that you have already done a lot. The fact, that you took the decision to become an entrepreneur, to start your own company, no matter what stage you're in, that's already a humongous win. And one that not many people, have the courage of doing. So that's the first one. And then um, the second part is, again, like whenever you take that step back, try to always remember, okay, like what are your goals? Or that's what I tend to do always, like, okay, take my step back. Where is where I want to be like in 3 months or next month? And sort of like look at whatever, or my dashboard of all of my active tasks or active things that are happening in the company, and try to reprioritize so that I make sure that that goal happens. And that can be from, pushing from the tech side, from marketing, from sales, like how do the different pillars converge to make sure that I achieve that goal? Because sometimes we're so focused on the day to day and execution of what's going on in the company, or just again what's going on there day to day, that we forget about certain goals or milestones that we had set. And sometimes again we have to take that step back to look at how we are doing things and reassessing whether that is actually taking us to that goal. Because sometimes we forget about reacting to things that we may be doing wrong. So yeah, I don't know whether that's very useful, but that's what I tend to do when things start getting blocked and I see that we're not really getting to where we are supposed to be getting. It's like, okay, let's stop.
No,
Let's see
you know
what is
what?
that we're doing.
You're really focused on, perspective. There's a
Yeah.
HBR article that talks about zooming in and zooming out and being able to do that, right? That there's a skill associated with that. And it's tough, right? Because some days are up and some days are down. And if you can follow this line, or you can kind of follow that North Star that you're talking about, which I think is really a great perspective to have. So really good stuff. Let me ask you, what's one question that you wish I asked you today that I haven't? And how would you answer that question?
Because I mean, I guess, because I thought about it before, but I think we actually did cover it. Because it was more, like about advice before starting your company. Like what is it that I wish, I had known before I started. And we've talked about many things, but one of the things that maybe we did not mention was, well, first of all, that any hypothesis that you have, in your business plan and your development plan is 100% going to be wrong. That's sort of like, the first thing that I had known, that I wish I had known whenever I started. Like, okay, whatever I had in my head at the time of starting was wrong by default. And then that things take a lot longer than you initially anticipate. No matter how rushed you want things to be, no matter how fast you want to go, the reality is that you're not alone. You have team members, and we have to remember that, the passion that we put into our company, we put that passion, we put that out, we put that number of hours because, we are the founders, and it's like a little baby, but we cannot, assume that the people that you employ are going to be there with you, working 18 hours a day and not doing their normal life. So obviously that at the end, it means that things take considerably longer than what you expect. So I wish, I had taken that into account whenever I started, both for financing or, just the go-to-market planning. Whatever you think is going to take, just, I don't know, I'm not going to say multiply it by 2, but by 1.5 for sure. And so just a little piece of advice to someone out there.
Oh, that sounds great. Patti, this has been such an amazing conversation. Where can people find you and KADO online?
So for KADO, you can go to www.kadonetworks.com. So that's our website. You can check out the product. You can actually download it as well on the App Store. If you just want to play around with our basic version. And then in terms for me, I think the easiest is always LinkedIn. So check me out, Pati Recarte, KADO, LinkedIn, and I should be there.
Amazing. Well, Patti, I got to say, this has been an absolute pleasure connecting with you today. I enjoyed listening to you and learning from you and your experiences. And I think there's just so many great ideas here. Especially, I love the whole twist and the whole journey you've been on. Investment banking and everything. Oh my goodness, it's really just such a great
roller coaster.
I love it. Yeah. So, listen, for anybody listening out there, thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that social media good stuff, and we will catch you real soon. Thank you for listening to Success at Scale with Triple G. And Patti, thanks so much for being with us. We'll continue the conversation. Until then, peace.